Okay, welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And it was a big week. We were back last week after a week absence. Lopkin, it's glad that you're very happy you're feeling better. A lot of Biden over the last 7 days, starting with really funny is esteemed press secretary, who's another Mensa candidate, texted something, and I don't remember the exact text. I didn't write it down, but as your president, I have done this, that, and so basically, people are saying who's running the show. She sent out a text. It should have been on his stream, but she screwed up and did it on hers. And it just gets in. Is it a big deal? No. If it was an isolated incident, no. But it shows, does he have anything to do with what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's less about whether or not he has anything to do with what's going on. This is social media. Every CEO, every business, every company has somebody who's designated to do this. I think it's more a case of how stupid are the people in this administration that they can't even manage to do that right.
I think it's a combination of both, if you want my honest opinion. I think it's yes. If it was a regular president, not a figurehead, not a propped up president, I wouldn't even put it on the list. How does that sound?
Yeah.
It's just stupidity in his inner circle. Yeah, it's not exactly the book of the 1960s, Best and the Brightest, referring to the Kennedy administration. This is Dumb and Dumber, the sequel. Part 3.
Is, and there's
Dumber Than Rocks.
There is actually a book coming out. I don't know what the title is, but the Biden administration has cooperated with this author for the last 2 years.
Yes, The Last Politician.
Yeah, thank you. The Last Politician. They expected this to be a glowing book showcasing all of the wonderful things this administration has done. And this is not a conservative writer. And
not at all. He's far left.
Yeah, he's a far left writer. He had unfettered access, and the book details just what a train wreck this administration is.
Oh, it's hysterical. It's almost in need of psychotherapy, like family counseling. Basically, why do they treat me like a baby? What the hell is this? This is a leader of the free world? What are you, crazy? Yeah, it was a train wreck, and I'm tired. No kidding.
Of course he's tired. And I love that Karine Jean-Pierre, anytime she's asked about Biden's age, she comes back with, "Oh, he's fully energized. We have trouble keeping up with him." Really? If you're that young and you have trouble keeping up with him, you need to see a doctor.
Immediately. No. Yeah. Emergency medical care. I'll give you the number, okay? Absolutely. You are if she's 35, 40, she needs to see someone. She'd take some vitamins, do something ASAP. I know people in nursing homes, definitely, that have more energy than him.
Yes.
So yeah, it's pretty bad. So then, speaking of that, and his incompetent administration, completely out of touch, a bunch of 35-year-old Ivy League Bolsheviks, probably leftovers, or definitely leftovers from Obama. But anyway, Bidenomics, he's still promoting that, whereas 70% of people polled think the economy is going south and do not approve. Plus, this is not just opinion, but the average person has lost just by hanging around and just by having Dumb and Dumber in the White House, are $2,000 a year poor due to Bidenomics. Comments?
Yeah, Bidenomics is an unbridled failure.
A disaster, like everything else he's ever done.
Inflation is real inflation is up 17%. Oil prices are now going up because Saudi Arabia and Russia are cutting back production. We just
let me articulate that a little bit more, because that is on the list. And I believe it's not just Saudi greed. I believe they want this guy out of here because they're scared shitless of another 4 years of Dumb and Dumber. And
Actually,
God forbid Kamala.
I don't
I
think
do.
it
I think
has
they're
anything to
trying to
do with
raise
the
prices.
well, they're trying
Go
to
ahead.
raise prices, but I don't think it has much to do with the Saudis at all. It was the Saudis and the Russians that did it. Russia is dependent on the money their oil is bringing in for the war in Ukraine. So they are trying to raise prices so they can afford to buy North Korean armaments. The Saudis are backing Russia because Biden shot his mouth off during the campaign, saying it was a terrorist regime and bad mouthing them. And so they're doing it just out of spite.
I think it's somewhere more towards your side, but definitely the Saudis are not, as you said, no fans of Biden and will gladly do anything to F him over. And I think that is part of it. And my other question to you is assuming, which is a good assumption at this point, that oil is going to be, let's say, 450. How does it play out in middle America?
Yeah, if gas goes back above 4, and
Which it will.
as of this morning, the average price was 388. So we're
There
almost
you go.
there.
Yes.
If it goes above 4 and stays there for the bulk of the election process, he's done for. And on top,
regardless of the indictments, let's be clear.
regardless of I mean, if you take a look at the indictments, every time a new indictment comes out, every time something new comes out, Trump raises more money. The national polls now have Biden, from the New York Times, no less, not exactly a conservative bastion, have Biden and Trump tied for the presidency, which has thrown the liberal media, especially George Stephanopoulos and the ladies of The View, into apoplectic shock.
Yes, no question about it. And just to be clear for our listeners, which I don't believe is true because there was another poll that had Trump ahead by 3 to 5, okay? If it's even, you're looking at how things are skewed towards the Democrats with polling, plus people being apprehensive to, let's just say, admit that they're going to vote for Trump. Plus, even if things are even, Steven, if it's even in terms of 45-45, it's really a landslide electorally because you got to go to like New York, Illinois, and California that tip the balance like it did for Hillary in the popular vote. But if it's even, it's a landslide electorally.
That's very true. And yeah, the liberals, especially the ladies on The View, Stephanopoulos, the people that cannot understand this, have not spoken to the average person. Even the average Democrat does not want Biden to be president again. Most people, according to these polls, I think it was 53%, are looking at this as a two-tiered system of government, and whether they think that Trump did something or not, they don't want that. So it's not just about indictments. It's about the entire system that the liberals have put in place that people are saying, no, enough is enough.
Wait a second, Lopkin, you have an amazing point because I've actually, again, no Trump fan, but I actually went through that thought process to share with you and our listeners that, yeah, this whole system needs to be cleansed. And I don't care if Trump's an idiot or a shithead or an egotistical moron. Business as usual ain't happening. Do you think more people are feeling that?
More people are thinking that way. I had a conversation just this morning on Truth Social. Now, Truth Social, very pro-Trump. It's his platform. But somebody asked me, and I use Truth Social a lot just for general business, not just for politics. And actually, the folks at Truth Social have been promoting my account because I'm not just doing politics. They're trying to get people to use it for other reasons. But somebody asked me if I was a Trump supporter. And I said, not really. I said, if my only choices in November are Trump and Biden, I will vote for Trump. But we need to move forward. And both Trump and Biden are moving in the wrong direction. It's looking backwards. And this on this pro-Trump platform, a lot of folks are agreeing with me. They're saying, yes, we like Trump. He's probably not the best choice, but hey, if he's the Republican candidate and the Democrats can't put up somebody other than Biden, and there's no viable third party candidate, they're swinging for Trump.
And do you think that's true with independents as well?
It's been shown on independents. It's been shown on more centrist Democrats. This has come up in poll after poll. People are tired of this, and they think the only way to do it is to show the Democrats that they can't get away with it.
I would agree, and yes, I think that's a huge factor because obviously it's been all orchestrated. And the other factor is what we just alluded to or discussed, minutes ago. It's oil prices. I think people, because you had that spike, time flies, a year and a half ago, a year ago, it went down. You drained the oil reserves. I think it goes up to 450, which is easily within range. Easily, I think people throw down the nozzle and say this is bullshit.
Yeah, I think even more than the gas prices, though, Biden is pushing Bidenomics. He's got a new ad campaign set to start tomorrow, airing during the NFL games, touting how great Bidenomics is. But he keeps lying about inflation going down. Inflation has not gone down for a single month in his entire administration. And he keeps saying, well, now it's 3. It was 9 before. It's like, no, it's not down to 3. It's up 3% from the 9%.
Yeah, but do you think I know he's a congenital liar. I get that, right? Yeah. But do you think he really he's never worked, even when he was sane or coherent or somewhat coherent, he's never worked an honest day in his life. Do you think he even understands inflation and about, it's on top of an already existing base? I really doubt it, to be honest with you, especially in his condition. I think it's a 50-50 split. He's a pathological liar, and he's stupid.
Not only don't I think he understands it, I don't think the people in his administration understand it. They have walked back so many comments that he has made. This is something that their own statistics are saying, no, this is a lie, and they haven't walked it back. I don't think they have anybody in the administration that understands how those numbers work.
Oh, yeah, no, they're all Ivy League, like I said, I didn't say, actually, Ted Cruz said it, 30-year-old Trotskyites who really come from UPenn, Harvard, never worked a day either, and they don't understand it either because they've all grown up with Biffy and Buffy.
Yeah, and you mentioned Harvard. Just a quick side note. There's a nonprofit organization that ranks colleges and universities, and they came out with their ratings, and Harvard got out of 100 points 0, primarily because they spent so much time cracking down on free speech.
Well, they deserve it. Yep. A lot of these, and I'm sorry, there's once gold standard universities, institutions of learning. I think with the wokeism, their misguided priorities, I don't think they're half the institutions that they used to be. Look what they turn out.
No, they're not. They're absolutely not. And that's been shown time and time again. People are graduating from Ivy League schools completely unprepared for the real world.
Yes, and that gets back into something that you've talked about, we've talked about, and I just talked about with a friend, talking about even college in general. My friend, his central air conditioning didn't work for various reasons. Essentially, the guy was over for an hour and gave him a $750 bill. What is that? Why is that important? It's important because, especially when you think that I think it's 55% of people going to college are going for marketing degrees. You got to scratch your head like, who's better off, dude?
Yeah,
Making 300 grand a year.
You're better off going to a trade school.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
There is a commercial airing now, um, talking about the need for electricians. And this guy, the power goes out, and this guy is staring at the circuit box. He doesn't know which switch to flip. He doesn't even know that it's called a circuit box. It's like, there's always going to be a need for electricians. There's always going to be a need for plumbers, for carpenters.
There may not be a need for marketing managers.
Forget the Ivy League degrees. Learn a trade, learn a real skill.
And no one can take that away from you. That is good advice. Again, speaking more of our leader in chief, he was in Delaware. I think he was in some kind of vacation situation, and they asked him, the reporters, why aren't you, why are you here? Why aren't you? He basically said that he was homeless, looking at what's going on in Florida and Maui, not the most, for Lunch Pail Joe, not the most sensitive of torts, and also basically a downright lie.
Well, I mean, this was him trying to be funny, trying to be relatable, and like the story about the kitchen fire in Maui, like all of the lies he tells, trying to be relatable. He doesn't know what he's doing anymore. And the fact of the matter is, the train has left the station on anybody thinking he cares about the American people. He still has not been to East Palestine, Ohio, and his excuse was, well, he's been very busy. He hasn't had the time. According to the official White House records, he has spent 40% of his presidency on vacation.
But the highest in modern history.
Yes, but he doesn't have the time to visit the tragedy in East Palestine. Meanwhile, Donald Trump was there a week after it happened. He's not even in office.
Well, I don't know how that happens. I thought he was Lunch Pail Scranton Joe. I guess I might be wrong. Okay, I mean, about a bunch of other people. I think it's a really good point in all seriousness. Because why is it a good point? Because I think that's a third of what got him elected. Mean old Donald Trump with his horrible tweets, and it was Lunch Pail Joe. Yeah, everyone knew he wasn't the most competent and not the brightest bulb in the Christmas tree, but he was going to restore civility, a sense of caring. I think it's a huge thing. That's not a minor situation, Dr. Lopkin, that he's been uncovered, unmasked, no pun intended, as the SOB he really always has been.
No, and it's actually going to figure very strongly in the 2024 election, because when you talk to centrist Democrats, when you talk to African Americans, when you talk to Hispanics, they all feel lied to. Biden was going to be the adult in the room. He was going to bring the country together. He was going to be the caregiver in chief, and he was going to be centrist. And all of that has turned out to be abject lies. And you have a large segment of the mainstream Democratic Party who, they may not vote for Trump, but they may stay home because they know what they were told was lies.
I have to say that's a good point, because the enthusiasm gap would be monumental. I think the enthusiasm gap was not there in 2020 because the reaction to Trump. I think with what's transpired over the last 3 years, I think that people would stay home for Biden. And I think it's interesting you bring up the African American community. I don't know the exact figures, but it's cut in half in terms of the support for Biden. I mean, Trump had something like 6%. He's doubled that.
Yeah,
and you think, okay, 12, there's no big deal.
It's not quite half, But in 2020, I believe it was 79% of African Americans supported Joe Biden. Now that number is down to 53%. So that's a big
It's getting
chunk.
there.
Yeah.
Yes. And with that in mind, he would not win re-election. They
No,
need the African American vote.
he needs these voters to turn out, and they're not interested in him.
No. But he'll do anything to buy an election. He's redoubling down on the student loan forgiveness. I don't know where that's going, but that's a blatant attempt to buy youth vote. There's zero enthusiasm. You talk about African Americans. Sorry, excuse me. With young people, there's literally zero enthusiasm because they're looking forward to a shitty future with his bonehead in office. So there's zero enthusiasm. He's trying to buy them out with student loan forgiveness. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's all he's ever done. I mean, that's been the Democrats' playbook for quite a long time. And in fact, I remember somebody telling me that they would never vote Republican because the Republicans didn't vote for extra stimulus money for, to go. Not he was working, there was no need for the extra stimulus, but they didn't vote to give him money, so he's never going to vote for them. Really? That's it. So you're basically saying you need to be bribed to vote.
Well, isn't that one of the key center underpinnings of the Democratic strategy and philosophy?
Yeah,
Cell
and
phones with Obama, Obama phones. I mean, it goes back to Johnson.
yeah, let's give away free stuff. Never mind how we're actually going to pay for it because none of it is really free. Let's give away all the free stuff we can have, buy as many votes as we can. But you are seeing that that's starting to backfire. And we're seeing it in California when uh, the panel for reparations recommended this ridiculous number that California could never come up with the money. They could tax every citizen of California 99% of their income, and they still couldn't raise the money for what this reparation council had recommended. And now they're going, oh, well, that's not even on the table. And you have African Americans going, you promised us you were going to do something and now you're not. It's all starting to backfire because the costs have gotten too high.
Interesting. And also on the African American front, I found this fascinating. I never would have imagined this to be something that would ever happen. But the indictment, Trump's treatment by the legal establishment actually resonates with a lot of African Americans, not because they directly, but because how African Americans were traditionally treated by the justice system. I found that fascinating.
Yes, there have been a lot of comments from African American leaders about the fact that the African American community is seeing how the Justice Department and how the justice system is treating Trump. And they're going, oh, look, it's not just us. They'll do this to anybody who they're afraid of.
Exactly. So I thought that was very interesting. Even though Trump's a billionaire, there's some, it does resonate not with everyone and some people in the African American community. And kind of wrapping up the whole Biden situation, he'll be the first president not to officially acknowledge by attending one of the ceremonies 9/11. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this goes to show just what a piece of shit Joe Biden
Thank you
is.
very much. Yeah,
I don't care that you'll get booed. You are the
which you would.
president. You are the president of the United States. And that was a defining moment in our history. To ignore it and go up on a junket to Alaska is absolutely unforgivable. And quite frankly, I hope every person that every first responder, every soldier that responded to the call after 9/11, every one of their family members needs to tell Joe Biden, we are never going to vote you for reelection.
Yeah, I agree. How cold, if you're obviously it's not like World War II where most of those people are no longer with us. It still resonates. People still lost their loved ones. They're still around. Sons, daughters, wives, husbands, and to be so cold. I think he's a coward. How do you like that? Because I think it's two things. His handlers know that he could say something really effing stupid, like this reminds me of the fire that I almost lost my cat. No, this is not. 3 years ago, it would have been a joke. It's no joke. We know. Jill and I know about loss. Bo died in a fire just like this. It's like, or he died in 9/11. I mean, it's not beyond the pale.
No, it's not. He's made up so many stories about Bo coming home in a coffin with draped in a flag, how he died over in Iraq. No, he died at Walter Reed. He died of brain cancer. He was not blown up by an IUD. And yeah, he keeps making these stories up. It is completely believable that he would make up a story about him joining up after 9/11 for the fight,
Yes.
and or dying in 9/11. It is unfortunate, but it is actually plausible.
100% true. And I also think that's number one. Number two, he's just basically a coward. Okay. And he can't take the heat because he knows if he was in New York or on anywhere else, he would be booed like he was last year. But now, even worse.
Yeah, I mean, after the disastrous pullout in Afghanistan, he has absolutely no foreign policy credibility. He has no credibility on 9/11. He was booed last year. I believe he was booed less so the year before because it was still new. But yeah, he is not showing up at any of these services because he is a coward.
Thank you very much. No question about it. He's also, again, highly callous or mentally deficient. He was getting a Medal of Honor to a Vietnam hero, much overdue. And I think it's because he just doesn't know where he is anymore. Before the ceremony ever ended, he left. Before the final prayer, before this, and of course the media was saying, well, the corporate mainstream media, well, he was giving this guy the center stage. No, he wasn't. If you get someone in the center, you step back and you acknowledge him, but you stay there out of respect. I think he didn't know what he was doing, and he just left. It's really, is it funny? Yes, but it's chilling.
No, I don't think it's funny at all. It is completely disrespectful. It shows he is incompetent. And as I said to you earlier, at this point, we're lucky he just walked away and didn't start talking about Bo dying in Vietnam.
That would be totally within the arena of possibilities, unfortunately. But yeah, I think his staff is scared shitless. They cannot. He's no way he's debating. No, I don't know. They're scratching their heads. Even some Democratic people, senators that wanted to be named nameless, said that basically we're stuck with Biden. Although people have been suggesting that Newsom has been being bantered about another genius.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom, he's been campaigning sort of under the wire so as not to publicly
Yes,
get
there you
called
go.
out by Biden and Harris. But everybody knows he thinks he's running for president. The
Of
fact
course.
of the matter is, there's a town in California, Idlewild, California. It's a very small town. Their mayor, literally, is a golden retriever. And that golden retriever is smarter than Gavin Newsom is.
I think it's hysterical because I do have a twisted sense of humor. I heard I'm stealing someone else's line, but he looks like something right out of Central Casting. He's good looking, blah. But as soon as he opens his mouth, it's like, whoa, dude. Yes, a real. But I have to say, juxtaposed to our Dumb and Dumber in chief, he looks like literally Einstein.
Yeah, and that's something that will work in his favor. Not just that he looks good, But when he talks, compared to Joe Biden, compared to Kamala Harris, he sounds so much smarter than either one of them. Now, that's a very low bar. He's not a bright guy, and take a look at what he's done as of San Francisco and governor of California to what used to be a great state. It's now falling apart in massive deficit after being bailed out by the federal government. Crime is rampant, homelessness is rampant, and he thinks his policies are going to go over with the American public because that's what everybody wants in their backyard: more crime and homelessness.
But isn't it indicative of a lot of politicians? I will say, especially more on the Democratic side, and Biden. I love this guy, Greg Kelly, on Newsmax, and he was going through a kind of retrospective on Biden, talking in the early 80s. And basically, he stops the tape and he goes, there he is, high on aspirations, low on talent. That summarizes Biden. It also summarizes Newsom, among others.
It
Zero
really
accomplishments, zero talent, zero imagination.
it really
but
does.
high
And
on it. Go ahead.
you know, Democrats need to watch more old television because I watch Johnny Carson episodes very frequently.
So do I.
And he constantly in the monologue talks about what a buffoon Joe Biden is. And this is long before anybody thought he was going to run for president. But this keeps repeating himself. And this is why back when we were on terrestrial radio, I was so hard on Obama because during Obama's first campaign, A&E ran a marathon of Walter Cronkite Presents. And these were Walter Cronkite. It was a series that Walter Cronkite did where he would go through a year or several years and talk about the events of that year and what was going on. And when they showed the episode covering the Jimmy Carter 1976 campaign, what they were saying about Obama in the current media at the time was exactly the same as what the 1976 media was saying about Jimmy Carter. Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And that's what we keep having over and over.
Without question, unfortunately. Again, looking at the age situation, we were both, actually, we went to the same concert years ago. The Stones have come out with their new album after 18 years. First of all, thoughts on that, just real quick.
Yeah, I don't know that I even care. I mean,
I agreed. Yeah, but
there's
wait
so,
a second. No,
there's
wait a
so
second,
many bands that their time has come and gone, and it's time to retire. Yeah,
100%. But wasn't there a time when you hung on the release of a new Stones album? I'm talking
sure.
years ago.
Yeah,
it's
but
funny
that
how
was a
things
long
change.
time ago.
100%. But why do I bring it up? I bring it up because Pierce Morgan had a very interesting observation that he went to a soccer game with Mick Jagger, who is pretty much the same age as Biden, and he goes, it's not about age. It's about abilities, intellectual deterioration. He goes, he was at as I said, a soccer match with Mick Jagger, who was articulate, he was funny, he was engaging. You couldn't go. Biden would be having oatmeal coming out of his mouth. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's something, we keep hearing about the polls that are saying, do you think Joe Biden is too old to have another term? It's not about age, and it's not about Joe Biden. We have an entire group of representatives who are mentally not fit to be in office. Joe Biden, Dianne Feinstein, John Fetterman, Mitch McConnell. We keep seeing this over and over again, and nobody wants to talk about it. It's like, oh well, but it's mental health. It's you have to let them go. No, these people need to be at the peak of their game. And in comparison, Take a look at Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, I believe, is a year or two older than Joe Biden. And he's an idiot, but he's got all his faculties. He's out there running around. When he does a Sunday show and they're interviewing, there's no question that he knows what he's going to say. He's sticking to script. He has his faculties. It's not about age. It is about the fact that if you don't take care of yourself, this is what happens to you as you get older. And in the case of John Fetterman, when you have a stroke, if you're not careful, this is what happens. And we have to look at our elected officials and say, are you at the top of your game? And in these cases, they're not.
Without any question. But I will bring up this. It's a broken system. Our founding fathers never intended politics to be a full-time job or a forever job. You work in the farm, you serve 2 years, you go back to your vocation, your family. And it really brings, why do I bring it up? It's not a history lesson. It's a lesson in how corrupt our government is. Why would you ever quit the easiest friggin' job in the world? You don't have to work. You get paid shitloads of money for doing nothing. You basically get the benefits of insider trading. You go into Congress or the Senate worth $100,000. You leave worth $6 million. That's not exactly what Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson were aiming for.
No, being a congressman, being a senator, being president was supposed to be public service. It was not supposed to be a meal ticket. It certainly was not supposed to be the family business where seats are handed down from father to daughter, from mother to daughter, from father to son. It is ridiculous. We need to put in term limits. You serve 2 terms, you're out. Done. None of these pensions that get your salary for the rest of your life.
For only 1 term, by the way. The guy Santos, who basically needs to be in a mental hospital, will get a full pension. Full.
It's absolutely ridiculous. They can contribute to a 401k like the rest of us.
It's called a banana republic, my friend.
Yep.
And I love what my friend said. He said that, yes, because he was, worked overseas a lot. Because the other countries like Mexico, the corruption's right on the surface. You go across the border, they'll impound your whatever you're carrying, your samples, and you pay the guy $10. America, especially over the recent couple of years, 5 years, 6 years, is within an earshot of becoming a banana republic. I see very little difference.
It's absolutely ridiculous when you weaponize government agencies for your own agenda, when you weaponize government agencies to protect the criminal activities of your son. This is a banana republic.
Yes, and I think it needs to be some inserts into some history books if this continues to go on, because you need to dispense with the shit about checks and balances and how everything's above board, because at this point it's a bunch of bullshit as we are in 2023.
Yeah,
bullshit.
And I honestly think that the biggest part of this, the biggest problem and contributor, is the fact that our schools, never mind the colleges, I'm talking about K through 12, don't teach civics anymore. They don't teach how government is supposed to work. People out there think that the Supreme Court are legislators, that they are making law. No, that is not what the Supreme Court does. They think that the president can do an executive order, and we've heard this from Congress people, from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, saying,
the
president
education and AOC don't belong in the same conversation. Sorry.
They've been saying, you can do this by executive order. No, you can't. Congress has to pass laws. Executive orders only apply to government agencies and how they operate. The Supreme Court's job is to say, yes, this law is constitutional. No, it isn't. Period. People need
Well,
to learn.
Well, I think that train has left the station. I do agree with you. If people do not, because I grew up where I knew the three branches of government, all the above, right? I think that train, I think people have no, you listen to the man in the streets interviews. These people, especially young people, it's shocking. You
Yeah,
basically could say AOC is Secretary of State. They go, yeah, she's cool. And that's the other thing that troubles me more. You can have a moron like AOC, and because she's good on social media, she may look good, blah blah blah, and basically people would, yeah, that's good. I believe in that. And plus, the other thing, if you don't have a brain, Dr. Lotkin, then you'll be swayed. You have no objective rationality, okay? In other words, you watch CNN, MSNBC, go, yeah, it makes sense to me. Oh, yeah, it's the dossier, okay? That's where we are.
well,
Sorry,
the
it
the
depends on a
problem
dummy
is they're believing what they're being told
because they don't have the
based on
brains to think otherwise.
more than that, but based on the echo chamber they're listening to. And the perfect example was, and I don't remember what media outlet it was, but they went into Greenwich Village back. This is back when Trump was touting his tax plan, and they gave some details about the tax plan and called it the Trump tax plan. And people, oh, that's terrible. It's never going to work. We're all going to pay more taxes except the rich. Then they gave details of the exact same plan and told people it was Bernie Sanders' plan. And people said, "Oh, that's great. I love that. We need to support this." Because they were told that the plan was either Trump or Sanders, they went, oh, yes, that's wonderful. No, they had no comprehension of what the tax plan was, what the implications and results would be. It was simply which side was promoting it.
And it goes back to your original point: when you have a uninformed public, that's what you get. It basically, and it plays into the Democratic mindset and their agenda, because they're supposed to be the party of science and all this guy's all a bunch of shit. It's an emotionally based party, and lack of education, you make decisions like an animal, more on emotion, and so it works to the Democrats' favor.
Yeah, and
An
I mean
uninformed populace.
it is absolutely ridiculous. And you start seeing Bill Maher again went off on the Democrats. Now, he's not a conservative. He's the same liberal he always was. But because the party has moved so far to the left, they can't defend against his arguments because he's still a liberal, but even he's going, you guys have gone off the rails.
Yes, and I think that is a very good canary in the coal mine, because I think, yes, he is a die in the wool, has been forever. I enjoy sometimes his comedy, but he's a super liberal, and he's even had enough. So I think that's something to be considered if you're a Democrat. Now, on a much lighter note, wow, you talked about Johnny Carson. That train has really left. It's a bullet train, and it's out of the station, because they had the current crop of late night hosts: Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, and what's the other guy's name? I can't think of him. He's so good, from CBS. But anyway, they had this Force
Colbert.
5. Oh God, yeah, Force 5 podcast, and trying, supposedly supporting the writers. And wow, it did support the writers, Dr. Lopkin, because it showed the writers have to get back to work ASAP, because without writers, these people have no talent. They're about as funny as a doorknob,
No,
maybe worse.
the
Zero,
podcast
zero,
has been
zero.
the podcast has been widely ridiculed. They've come they're showing just how little talent they have.
Yes.
And they did this to support the writers.
And they
and
did.
and you know what? Yeah, they showed why the writers are needed, but at this point, the writers don't deserve any support. Over the last 2 weeks, it has come out that more Hollywood is actually seeing more evictions because people in Hollywood are not working because everything's shut down. The writers don't care. The writers recently turned down an offer from the studios that included salary between $11,000 and $14,000 a week.
Ooh, where
Yeah,
do I sign up?
they don't deserve any support. When you are being offered $14,000 a week, and as we said at the beginning of the podcast, the average family has lost $2,000 thanks to Bidenomics, you don't deserve support.
Does that go into possibly? We didn't discuss this before our podcast today, but an article that I saw that basically, which used to be the death knell at 55, may God bless you. Companies are actively trying to recruit 55 plus because the new generation, with Generation Z, are incapable of work, dedication, and follow through. So you'd rather have an old geezer at 60 years old doing something. You're going to be reliable. They're going to show up. They have a good knowledge base. They know how to write. They know how to spell potentially. And that's never. It used to be 55. Good luck. What do you think of that, Lopkin? And does it play into the fact that people? How does it relate to the writers? It relates to the writers because a lot of Generation Zs and younger people don't really have that much of a burning desire to go to work.
No, and that's what this is all about. It is about work ethic. Older workers have a work ethic. That's how they were brought up. And yes, companies are trying to hire more of them. I will tell you, my son is Gen Z, and I brought him up to have a work ethic. And what has happened is he has gone to work for some companies that the company went out of business, so he lost his job. He has taken temp work. He has never been out of work for long because he will work. The work ethic is the number one skill that employers are looking for now. Number two, by the way, is your communication skills and being able to talk with coworkers and not be on your phone texting all the time.
And that goes into the whole 55 plus. And now just comment on that. I mean, when I was in business, 55 was basically you're out to pasture. You don't think that's a noteworthy phenomenon that companies are actively trying to recruit 55 plus? That was unheard of 10 years ago.
Well, when we were on terrestrial radio during the Great Recession,
Remember that?
If you got laid off and you were 55, we were talking about the fact that you may never work again.
Yes. And wait a second, I got to interject one thing.
And thank God we were wrong.
Remember when we had that psychiatrist? He was on 60 Minutes. He was like 10 years before. He was like the man. Then he pulls up. He's like 350 pounds. I don't know if you're in that. I don't know if you're in that segment, but basically it was one of the greatest ones ever. A guy calls up. He goes like, "I'm 55 and I lost my job," so he's thinking he's going to get support. And the guy goes, "I'm sorry, it's over."
Yeah.
It was amazing. But anyway, enough of terrestrial radio. So anyway, we look at my old stomping ground, Pennsylvania. Okay. They had a fugitive, an illegal alien from Brazil who committed murder in Brazil and now committed murder in the United States and is now on the loose. But there's no problem with immigration or illegal immigration, is there?
No, just let everybody come over the border.
Yeah, why
We
build
ne-
walls, build bridges?
we need immigrants, but we need to know who these immigrants are. We cannot. I used to talk about this a lot. There's basically four types of immigrants, and I'm not going to go into all of the details because of time. But basically, you've got type one. These folks are coming to America because they love the opportunity, they love America, they want to work. Type two is they're coming to America, they don't really care about America, but if we give them the opportunity, they're going to contribute because they want to better themselves. Type three is these people are they just don't want to be where they are. They want to take advantage of anything they can, do as little as possible, whatever. The fourth type, these are criminals, Mexican cartels, terrorists. We have these four types of immigrants coming over the border. And the basic problem we have is you can't tell what type they are by looking at them. There's no way to go, oh, okay, yeah, you're one, you're two, you're three, no, you're four, you can't come in. You actually have to interview them. You have to investigate them. Otherwise, you're never going to know what type of immigrant. And if every immigrant was a type one or two, we could throw open the borders and let everybody in. But
Okay,
we've
but
got the threes and fours.
here's where I have an issue though. There's enough type one in the world that's a competent country, a country that actually had leadership that had half a brain, would have try to actively encourage type 1 immigration from all over the world. Okay, there is no need for type 3 and 4. Okay, it's a country that is hell bent on self suicide. Okay, it is ridiculous, and I believe the Democrats are doing it and Biden's doing it on purpose because they like dependent people. You have America, which is the country club everyone wants to join, and yet you're dumbing it down to making it the community college of countries. No other sane country does this. Okay, again, I'm all for legal immigration from anywhere in the world. Type 1. How does that sound? India, Africa, everywhere. That's a positive. We don't need more deadbeats. Sorry, we don't.
Right, and now
we don't need any mass murderers.
But what you're seeing is now backfiring because you have very liberal areas, Massachusetts, New York City, California, who have been yelling about we're a sanctuary city, we're a sanctuary state. And now they're seeing what that really means. And then, oh, we can't handle this. And now they're turning on Biden and they're turning on each other. Eric Adams, mayor of New York, has been trying to get Governor Hochul, again, fellow Democrat, to force other New York towns to take these immigrants. And the smaller towns are saying, no, we are not a sanctuary city. We are not a sanctuary town. We are not taking them. You made this bed. You have to lie in it.
I actually love it. I don't love illegal immigration, but it shows, we've always said on the show, even maybe back to terrestrial radio, now that we're going down memory lane, that liberals are always do as I say, not as I do. It's all good when you're at Martha's Vineyard and you're in Boston, the epicenter of liberalism, and you're talking about, yes, everyone's a person. I've seen the signs when Trump first got elected. We're all water, or we're all 90% water, whatever that means. Okay, I get it. But anyway, until the chickens come home to roost, then it's all good for you and for other people, right? But when it's my situation, no, I can't have that. So I think it's fantastic. It's what they actually deserve, and it's a good dose of their own medicine.
It is, and you're seeing this, the fights start to go within the party. And
good.
Kirsten Sinema is going off at Biden. And she's not alone. There are other senators with her because the federal government has given more money to New York City than they did the entire state of Arizona, which is actually on the border. Arizona has dealt with many more people than New York City has, but because it's a border state, Biden doesn't care.
That goes into Mr. Compassion. But yes, I think this immigration is going to blow up. And again, destruction starts from within. And I think the Democrats are turning and will continue to turn on Biden with immigration, New York, okay, other areas, Massachusetts, hardly a bastion of conservatism, and the economy. I don't give a shit if you're Johnny Liberal when you're worth $2,000 less. And people barely, most Americans live paycheck to paycheck to begin with. They can't afford $2,000. That's a rent. That's a mortgage payment. It can't go out of the equation. I think people, and we talked about this maybe 4 months ago, time does fly. When your house is on fire, you don't really give a shit if the fireman's an asshole. What does that mean? Yeah, Trump, is he a good guy? Is he a shithead? Yes, he is a shithead, but who cares because the house is on fire. Am I not correct?
You are. And that's the situation we're in right now.
Another, talking about my old stomping ground, Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, the Philadelphia police commissioner, a affirmative action beneficiary, checked all the boxes, low on brain matter, high on box counts, has resigned. Oh, surprise, surprise. The city of brotherly love, not so much. In fact, they're showing videos of Philadelphia, believe it or not, it's not a joke, in Mexico. There you go.
Yeah, the city is on fire. They're having a crime wave unlike any in their history. And yes, this woman was not capable of doing the job.
Anything.
So now she is going to be the deputy chief of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which means she is responsible for the security at all of the airports in the tri state area, the tunnels, the bridges.
And she got that from her talent, not because she checked the boxes. So potentially, or not potentially, in reality, you have people that check the boxes a la Kamala Harris that will have perpetual employment until they choose not to. Not based on merit, based on boxes.
Yeah, and that's the big problem. We have to get back to focusing on merit. If you want a job, you have to earn it. You have to be qualified to do the job. If you want to graduate, you need to be able to pass the tests. You need to be able to read, write, and do math. We have to stop saying, oh, we have to make everything easier because they can't live up to the standards we used to have. No, we have to make sure that they can meet the standards. And the fact is, anybody, if you put in the effort, you can meet the standards.
Okay,
You
but
can
isn't
raise
that
yourself up.
okay? Isn't that what you used to work with him? I forgot his name. The African American guy from Fox Business. Blah blah blah. I forgot his name.
Charles Payne.
I like him. Anyway, he was talking about he's never encountered more racism than when he moved to New York City, patronizing racism. And my point is, isn't when you lower standards really a sign of true racism? Because you, in your heart, do not believe that minority groups can't make it without lowering standards. I find that highly offensive and untrue.
Yes, what is more condescending and racist than telling a group of people, "Oh, you can't do this on your own. You need my help."
It's like being a parent and having a son or daughter and say, don't worry, Johnny, don't worry, Nancy. I know you're not capable, but daddy and mommy will still support you your whole life. You're destroying a kid, and that's what they've done to many, many people of various communities. Dr. Lopkin, I'm glad you are feeling better.
Thank
You
you.
always have your A game. And that is it for the show. Tell our listeners how they can keep in touch and contribute to where we were
Yeah,
going.
if you'd like to comment on anything we've said, or if you have a topic you'd like us to look into, you can get us through the Carnivore Radio Facebook page, or you can go to xvadio.com/connect and let us know what you're thinking. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
I thank you, Dr. Lopkin. I will see you next week.
We'll see you then.